My life in the suburbs seemed perfect to anyone looking in. A big house with a sprawling backyard, a pristine pool that sparkled under the sun, a hard-working husband, and a 20-year-old son about to graduate college. But behind those closed doors, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. My husband, Mike, spent most of his time at work, and when he was home, he was glued to his phone or the TV. The warmth we once shared had turned cold over the years, leaving me feeling invisible in my own marriage. It was a Saturday afternoon in early summer when I first noticed Marcus. He was my son Eric's best friend, a polite, confident young man who had been coming over to hang out for months. I had never paid much attention to him before, but that day something shifted. Eric had invited Marcus to swim in our backyard pool. From the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of them through the sliding glass door. Marcus stood on the pool's edge, his body glistening with water under the midday sun. His athletic frame was lean yet muscular, his dark skin flawless and smooth. He dove effortlessly into the water, resurfacing with a grin that showcased perfect white teeth. For a moment, I couldn't look away. It wasn't just his looks that caught my attention. It was his confidence. The way he carried himself, so different from my husband's distant and tired demeanor. I felt a strange stirring inside me, one I hadn't felt in years. I brushed off the feeling and turned my focus back to the dishes. But my mind kept wandering back to him. Over the next few weeks, Marcus began spending more time at our house. He and Eric worked out together in our garage, played video games late into the night, and sometimes just lounged by the pool. Each time Marcus was around, I found myself hyper-aware of his presence. One afternoon, while Eric ran to the store, Marcus came inside for a drink. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Mrs. Blake, do you mind if I grab some water?" Marcus asked, his deep voice startling me. "Of course, Marcus," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. "And please call me Amanda." He flashed that charming smile again. "Thanks, Amanda." As he reached for a glass, our hands accidentally brushed. It was a small, fleeting moment, but it sent a jolt through me. I quickly pulled my hand back, hoping he hadn't noticed the way my breath hitched. "Sorry about that," he said with a chuckle. "It's fine," I murmured, my cheeks flushing. After he left the kitchen, I leaned against the counter, trying to calm the racing thoughts in my head. What was happening to me? I was a married woman in my 40s, yet here I was, blushing like a teenager over a boy half my age. Later that evening, I sat by the pool after everyone had gone to bed. The water shimmered under the moonlight, its gentle ripples mirroring the unrest in my heart. I couldn't deny it anymore. There was something about Marcus that drew me in, something I couldn't explain or control. I told myself it was just a harmless crush, something that would fade with time. But deep down, I knew better. The way he had looked at me earlier that day, it wasn't just in my head. There was something unspoken between us, a spark that couldn't be ignored. As the days went on, I tried to bury these feelings under the routine of daily life, but Marcus made it impossible. His presence filled every corner of my home, his laughter echoing through the walls, his scent lingering in the air long after he'd left a room. A week later, Eric and Marcus were playing basketball in our driveway, their shirts tossed aside in the summer heat. I opened the living room window to let in some air, and their playful banter floated inside. I tried to focus on folding laundry, but my eyes kept drifting to Marcus. When they finished playing, Eric ran inside to grab something from his room, leaving Marcus on the porch with a bottle of water. He caught me watching through the window and smiled. It wasn't just a friendly smile, it was knowing. Like he could see right through me. My heart raced, and I quickly looked away, pretending to busy myself with the laundry. "Nice day, isn't it?" Marcus's voice startled me. He was standing just outside the window now, leaning casually against the frame. "Yes, it is," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You should come outside more." "Mrs. Blake, get some sun," he said, his tone light but laced with something I couldn't quite place. "I'm fine right here, but thank you," I said, forcing a smile before turning away. Later that evening, I found myself alone in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. Marcus walked in, his footsteps soft on the tile. "Need any help?" he asked, his voice low and smooth. "No, I've got it," I replied, avoiding his gaze. But he didn't leave. Instead, he leaned against the counter, watching me. "You work too hard, you know that?" I paused, the plate in my hand forgotten. No one had said anything like that to me in years. "It's just what I do," I said with a small shrug. "Well, maybe someone should take care of you for a change," he said, his eyes locking with mine. My breath caught. There it was again, that spark, that unspoken tension between us. I knew I should walk away, say something to end this, but I couldn't. I was frozen, caught in his gaze like a moth to a flame. Before I could respond, Eric came into the room. My life in the suburbs appeared flawless to anyone looking in. A big house with a sprawling backyard, a pristine pool that sparkled under the sun, a hard-working husband, and a 20-year-old son on the cusp of graduating college. But behind those closed doors, things were far from perfect. My husband, Mike, spent most of his time at work, and when he was home, his attention was glued to his phone or the TV. The warmth we once shared had faded over the years, leaving me feeling invisible in my own marriage. It was a Saturday afternoon in early summer when I first truly noticed Marcus. He was my son Eric's best friend, a polite and confident young man who had been visiting our home for months. I had barely paid him any attention before, but something about that day was different. Eric had invited Marcus to swim in our backyard pool, and from the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of them through the sliding glass door. Marcus stood at the pool's edge, his athletic frame glistening with water under the midday sun. His lean, muscular build, flawless dark skin, and confident demeanor made it hard for me to look away. It wasn't just his looks, it was his energy, his presence, his confidence. So different from Mike's distant and tired demeanor. I felt a strange stirring inside, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. I brushed it off and returned to the dishes, but my mind kept wandering back to him. In the weeks that followed, Marcus spent more time at our house. He and Eric worked out in the garage, played video games late into the night, and lounged by the pool. Every time he was around, I found myself increasingly aware of him. One afternoon, while Eric ran to the store, Marcus came inside for a drink. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when his deep voice startled me. "Mrs. Blake, do you mind if I grab some water?" "Of course, Marcus," I replied, trying to sound casual. "And please, call me Amanda." He smiled, his teeth a perfect contrast to his rich complexion. "Thanks, Amanda." As he reached for a glass, our hands brushed briefly. It was such a small moment, yet it sent a jolt through me. I quickly pulled back, hoping he hadn't noticed the hitch in my breath. "Sorry about that," he said with a light chuckle. "It's fine," I murmured, my cheeks warming. After he left the kitchen, I leaned against the counter, trying to calm my racing thoughts. What was happening to me? I was a married woman in my 40s, blushing over a boy half my age. That night, I sat by the pool after everyone had gone to bed. The water shimmered under the moonlight, its ripples mirroring the turmoil in my heart. I told myself it was just a harmless crush, something fleeting. But deep down, I knew better. There was a spark between Marcus and me, unspoken but undeniable. I tried to bury the feelings, to focus on the routine of my daily life. But Marcus made it impossible. His laughter echoed through the house. His scent lingered long after he left a room, and his presence filled every corner of my mind. One humid evening, while Mike and Eric attended a baseball game, Marcus stayed behind, claiming he wasn't a fan of sports. The house was unusually quiet. I was curled up on the couch with a book. I couldn't concentrate on when Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, holding a glass of water. "Of course," I said, my voice barely audible. He sat beside me, closer than usual. The air between us felt electric, heavy with unspoken tension. "You seem nervous," he said softly. "I'm fine," I lied, though my trembling hands betrayed me. Gently, he took the book from my hands, setting it on the coffee table. "Amanda, you don't have to pretend with me." Hearing him say my name like that, without pretense, sent a shiver through me. I turned to face him, my defenses crumbling. "I can't," I whispered, but the words faltered. "You can," he replied, his voice calm and steady. "I know you feel it too." I stopped thinking. I stopped worrying about consequences. And when our lips met, it felt like the floodgates had opened. Weeks of suppressed emotions rushed out, consuming us both. The hours that followed were a blur of passion and guilt. As the night wore on, reality began to creep back in. I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. "This can't happen again," I whispered, though I didn't believe it even as I said it. "I don't think you mean that," Marcus replied, his voice confident. In the days that followed, our affair continued in secret. Every stolen moment, every touch, heightened the intensity, but also my paranoia. Mike's questions were subtle at first, but I could sense his suspicion growing. One evening, he found Marcus's hoodie draped over the back of a chair. "Did Marcus leave this here?" he asked casually. Yes, I said quickly, my heart pounding. He must have forgotten it after dinner. Mike raised an eyebrow but let it go. Still, the encounter left me shaken. How much longer could I keep this secret? It was a warm Sunday afternoon, and the house hummed with the usual noise. Eric and Marcus were laughing in the backyard. Mike was flipping through channels in the living room, and I was setting the table for dinner, pretending everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. I had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and the weight of my secret was suffocating. Every glance at Mike twisted guilt deeper into my stomach. And every time I saw Eric, shame consumed me. I felt like the worst wife, the worst mother. Through the kitchen window, Marcus caught my eye and gave me a small, knowing smile. My heart skipped a beat and I quickly looked away. I had to end this. I told myself that over and over, but it wasn't that simple. That evening, fate decided to step in. Mike had gone outside to take a phone call, and Eric was upstairs showering after their swim. Marcus and I were alone in the kitchen, the air between us thick with tension. I can't do this anymore, I whispered, my voice trembling. Marcus stepped closer, his hand brushing against mine. You don't mean that. I do, I insisted, though my resolve wavered under his gaze. This is wrong, Marcus. It has to stop. Before he could respond, the back door creaked open, and Mike walked in. For a moment, I thought we had composed ourselves, but then Mike's eyes narrowed, flicking between Marcus and me. What's going on here? He asked, his tone sharp.